War can kill people, and in this situation, this is what we're going to be talking about. We're not talking about normal explosions, but the explosion that is the second name of destruction. This is military knowledge, and today we will discuss it, unleashing the steel rods of destruction from space. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel because we'll discuss all interesting military facts that you want to hear. Without any further ado, let's get into the video. Satellite rods from God. These long darts released into the atmosphere are likely made of a weighty substance like tungsten and carried by a satellite. By reaching the surface, they're traveling at Mach plus 10 hypersonic speeds. My issue is, would that be a normal explosion like the explosives, or would it essentially just be a gigantic dart that digs into the ground? It would strike a target like a tremendous amount of energy. The rod is hefty and sturdy, yet not explosive. But given how quickly it's going and how heavy it is, the force it applies to the ground must be immense, too enormous to be satisfied with merely a dull dart piercing the earth. I ask because the answer would likely affect the type of target this weapon would be utilized for. It would be more effective against sizable soldiers, vehicles, or building squads if it produced a more typical explosion. But if it's a dart that pierces the earth, it would be a catastrophic bunker buster. This weapon would be employed on various targets. The 1967 Outer Space Treaty, signed by 107 nations, forbids the insertion of nuclear, biological, or chemical weapons into or use from Earth's orbit. They were unprepared for the American Air Force's simplest weapon to date, a tungsten rod with explosive force of an intercontinental ballistic missile that could strike a metropolis. The United States employed bombs during the Vietnam War known as lazy dog bombs. These were merely solid steel fin-equipped pieces less than 2 inches long. These were dropped in their thousands from aircraft flying over Vietnam. No explosion was involved. Lazy dog missiles, also known as kinetic bombardment, could fall into the earth at up to 500 miles per hour and break through 9 inches of concrete after being dropped from a height of as little as 3,000 feet. Before going ahead, I'd like to remind you that we talk about interesting facts about the military, so make sure you press the bell icon to never miss a video. The concept is similar to firing a gun at a target, except the projectile gains speed and energy that will be based upon the impact instead of losing momentum as it moves. They were just shooting at incredible speeds, raining bullet-sized death across a vast jungle. In terms of miles and years, this technology needs to be updated. A weapon system would consist of 2 satellites orbiting several hundred miles above Earth. One serves as the targeting and communications platform, and the other is equipped with many tungsten rods that can be dropped on targets in less than 15 minutes and would have a length of up to 20 feet and a diameter of 1 foot. The RAND Corporation first suggested mounting rods on ICBM tips in the 1950s. Science fiction author Jerry Pournelle popularized the satellite twist. Since then, the idea of kinetic energy weapons has been around. The idea endures even though the Pentagon won't disclose how far along the research is or even acknowledge that any attempts are underway. In its description of potential future space-based weapons, the US Air Force Transforms Flight Plan, released by the Air Force in November of 2003, mentions hypervelocity rod bundles. In its Space Weapons Earth Wars report from 2002, entire sections were devoted to the technology's applicability. It won't be at least 15 years if alleged rods from God, an informal moniker of unknown origin, will ever manifest. Heavy tungsten rods will need to be launched into space using far more affordable rocket technology than we now have. Pike of globalsecurity.org contends that before the rods could pierce the surface, their speed would be so great that they would melt on impact. The absentee ratio, or the possibility that orbiting satellites might be far from the target at any one time because they encircled the Earth every 100 minutes, would also be prohibitive. Pike contends that the initial idea of placing the rods atop intercontinental ballistic missiles, which would slow down sufficiently during the downward portion of their trajectory to avoid vaporizing on impact, should be pursued. ICBMs would also be less expensive and travel faster to their targets because they're based on Earth. According to Pike, the hefty cost and the challenge of keeping weapon platforms in orbit are 2 drawbacks of space weaponry. Nonetheless, much classified work is being done on this right now. Rods of God's most significant issue is that they wouldn't function. Let's go over each one individually as they are plenty. Number 1. Compared to chemical energy and insignificant in comparison to nuclear power, kinetic energy is not as high. A kinetic projectile must move at a speed of around 2.9 kilometers per second or Mach 8.5 to produce the point of mass equivalent in TNT. Number 2. Losses brought on by atmospheric drag. An orbiting body can't fall to Earth at a maximum orbital speed. It will expend a lot of energy due to the air resistance. According to a 2003 US Air Force investigation, the terminal velocity of these rods was Mach 10, according to the Rods of God entry on Wikipedia. The final statement, the practical applications of such a system are limited to those situations where its other characteristics provide a clear and decisive advantage. A conventional bomb/warhead of similar weight to the tungsten rod, delivered by conventional means, provides the similar destructive capability and is far more practical and cost-effective. Was a little overwhelming because it's only marginally higher than Mach 8.5 as I mentioned above. Number 3. You can't just throw something out of space. A fun little experiment would be to toss a small object towards Earth at a speed of roughly 10 miles per second while performing an EVA, extravehicular activity, as a cosmonaut. What occurs to the thing? The narrative was given to V.V. Belitsky by a cosmonaut named Leonov, and V.I. Arnold masterfully presents it. The object begins to travel toward Earth but soon turns and completes a full eclipse. About 1.5 hours later, it returns to meet the space station from above, although technically it deviates by a few dozen meters. The moral of the story is that you need a launcher of some kind like a rocket or a rifle to get the rod out of the satellite and move towards its target. I made a back-of-the-envelope calculation and found that the propellant mass required to deorbit is slightly less than 10% of the projectile's mass. You employ a Hohmann transfer to deorbit something in the best possible method. However, if a Hohmann transfer is involved, the ball will take longer than an hour to reach its destination. You must make a sacrifice to obtain minutes. I don't know how to calculate this. Perhaps a KSP expert can help. However, it wouldn't surprise me if the propellant ratio increased to 30%. Also, you require fuel to keep the satellite at its current height over time. The satellite gains weight and complexity as a result. Suppose you want to erect a 20-rod bundle weighing 10 tons each. Could you get away with 200 tons after adding solar panels, rocket engines, fuels, and other items? The ISS, the largest satellite ever built, currently weighs 370 tons and costs $150 billion to build. In the years following 9/11, the Bush administration even contemplated returning to attacking underground nuclear installations in rogue regimes. Interestingly, when the Minuteman III ICBM was first introduced in 1962, and each cost $7 million, or $57 million when adjusted for inflation. One key lesson from the idea of weapons like Project Doors is that hypersonic weapons can deliver a powerful punch and represent the future of intercontinental conflict. So what do you think about these facts? What destruction might it make? Tell us down in the comment section below what you think, and we'll see you in the next video. But until then, ensure that you like the video and hit on the notification bell so that you never miss a video from Military Knowledge.